Boyd Broncos are coming off their best ever season as a 5A program, won a district championship, went 2 rounds deep in the Division I playoffs, and Coach Don Drake hopes that that will be a foundation on which to build the future of this program. Don, what does a season like that do for you here at Boyd?
Well, you know, starting this offseason, I kind of took our kids back through the history of our program, which it's not a long history, as we're all aware, but you know, I talked to him about how we started, and I talked to him about the 2007 season where we ran all the way to the state quarterfinals, and then we were moved into Class 5A, and we took our lumps for a couple of years, and last year was a great year for us, you know. And my challenge to him all off season and through the summer, and obviously as we've started fall camp, is to follow success with success. You know, I told him that it's important for us to go back to where we were last year, you know. It's important for us to go compete for another district championship. It's important to go back to the playoffs because we've got to get to a place in our program where it's not playoffs one year, struggle the next year. You know what I'm saying? We got to continue to climb the mountain, and I think that this is a crucial year for us and a great opportunity for us to establish ourselves, I think, as a perennial playoff contender, those kind of things. And so that's the next step for us in our program. That's my challenge to our kids. That's my challenge to our senior class in what legacy they can leave this football program as they go out of the field and compete this year.
Your team traveled to Denton County to scrimmage Lake Dallas this past weekend. What did you take overall from Friday night?
You know, I was really pleased with our effort. I thought our kids came out and played really hard. You know, I thought that we started slow, really, on both sides of the football. Once we got into our live half situation, I thought we performed pretty well. We moved the ball pretty effectively. We scored 24 points in a half of play, ran the football very well. Brian had a great night for us. I think he had 5 carries for 105 yards, and Calvin Howard, who's our backup tailback, rushed for, I think, 75 yards. So, you know, we had a great night offensively. I felt like in a half of play. I felt defensively that we for the most part, played pretty well. Again, guys were running to the football. We tackled pretty well. So overall, I was pretty pleased for our first outing against somebody else, you know, in the last 10 months. You know what I'm saying? So it's been a long time since we've taken the field against an opponent, and so I was really pleased with how our kids performed.
You bring up Brian Triskele, back now as a junior, the district sophomore of the year. He rushed for 1,300 plus yards. How has he developed in the offseason now heading into his junior year?
Well, he's worked really hard. He had a tremendous summer. You know, he's put on a little weight. He's obviously gained some strength. You know, I think he's gotten a little faster. I mean, he took one the other night against Lake Dallas, I think about 70 yards for a score. So it was nice to see him break into the open field and be able to run for a touchdown over that distance, you know. So I've been really pleased with him, you know, and Brian's such a great kid, you know, very, very humble. I mean, if you were to bring him in here and start talking to him, you might not get 3 words out of him, you know, but he just shows up every day, he works hard, has a great attitude, and when it's time to play, he plays.
He's going to ease the pressure on your quarterback. Of course, no more Jonathan Griffin, and you've had a tight race to replace John. You have a junior in Russell Williams, who was your junior varsity quarterback a year ago. Sophomore Curtis Ladd has been competing. Ladd, the freshman team quarterback. And, of course, the senior in Tyler Phelps. Phelps replacing John down the stretch in the most pressure-packed moments of the season. Williams, though, will start out Friday night as your #1 guy.
Yeah, we looked and evaluated off of Friday. Of course, we've been evaluating over the last couple of weeks, you know, and we feel like Russell will be our starter on Friday night as we take the field against North. I'll be honest with you, all 3 of the kids I thought did some really good things Friday in the scrimmage, you know, and when you say it's a close race, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's been one where they all have competed very, very well and all managed that competition very, very well and been very supportive of each other, which is a great thing to see as a coach, you know. Of course, every one of them wants to play, and we can only play one. You know, and Russell will be our starter Friday. It will be likely that the other 2 will see action. You know, I can't sit here and tell you that they won't. I can't guarantee that they will, but I would hope that all 3 will at some point get some action in the game on Friday night.
Brian Triskele's older brother, James, has moved on. He was your leading receiver the last 2 years. He's obviously put his name in the record books in Boyd's brief history. A guy who could be your top target this year is Cameron DeSell going into his senior season. He has shown potential as a downfield threat, tall, lanky. Last year he was able to overcome a knee injury. What have you seen from Cameron?
Well, I've seen some really good things. He's a big body. He's a physical kid. Obviously has great leaping ability. I mean, he had 2 touchdown catches the other night against Lake Dallas. One of them down the goal line where he had to go up over a defender to make the play in the corner of the end zone. So, you know, there's no doubt that he's got to be a big weapon for us. You know, I think everybody knows coming in that we're replacing a kid at quarterback who ran a 4.3 40, you know, who was very explosive in the running game. And a lot of that running game will be transferred to Brian and to Calvin. And so in order to counteract that, you've got to be great in the play-action pass. You've got to be able to open your offense up and throw the ball down the field. And Cameron is one of those guys that's going to make us able to do that, hopefully. And so we're expecting a lot from him. We're going to need that from him.
As far as the offensive line goes, you move Rafael Serrano from right guard to center to replace John Harris. You have a returning starter in Jacob Hill, who was hurt near the end of last year. You definitely consider him as a returning starter. How does that line look at the moment?
Well, Jacob is, again, coming back at left tackle for us, who got a considerable number of snaps last year. You know, Rafael played right guard for us, as you said. We moved him to center. He started all 12 games for us, did a great job last year as a sophomore offensive lineman. So he's kind of the leader of that group. You know, we've got some new faces. Alex Shaheen is a junior. He's taken Rafael's spot at right guard. Has had a great spring and a great fall camp. Toby Olaru is playing left guard. You know, awesome kid, you know, and he's the epitome of what I like in a high school football player, because he's got every reason to not be successful. Because if you don't remember Toby, I mean, Toby stands probably about 5'7", and he might be soaking wet 170 pounds, you know, but he's a very strong kid, a very physical kid, and he has so much heart and so much intensity. And the other night against Lake Dallas, he blocked a kid that probably outweighed him by 60 pounds the entire night, you know, and did a phenomenal job. So I'm really excited about that group. I thought they played really well on Friday. I see them getting better and better every single day, and so we're very excited about what we have up front.
Don, you dealt with so much injury last season. You said it was the most adversity you had ever encountered in your 16-plus years of coaching. Does that help you now going into this season, the fact that you have only so many starters returning on both sides of the ball, and, of course, if something pops up again this season, which you know it will, you are able to handle that?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that what it does as a coach and also for the kids that are playing is it makes it so real, understand the opportunity that exists for each one of them, and that I better be prepared each and every week, because my name may get called. I mean, Coach Drake may walk down the sideline to me and say, hey, so-and-so went down and it's your time and you've got to be ready to go play and this team's dependent on you. So I think the kids understood that. I mean, we had some great examples last year in Mackenzie Poe, who when Jackson Dennis went down, Mackenzie's thrust into the starting lineup and did a phenomenal job for us, you know, for the remaining part of the year. And so, you know, those examples of that adversity that we went through and we were still able to be successful, I think shows that it's truly a team game. It's not an individual game by any means. And every kid that we have on there has the potential of some point stepping on that field, and they better be prepared to go play.
You mentioned Jackson Dennis. He's back at nose guard. Your defensive line returns intact. Along with Dennis, you have your ends, Jamal Palmer, the Baylor commit, in addition to Jay Humphrey. How important is that three-man front to what you do on defense?
Well, they're extremely important. You know, the game of football is won at the line of scrimmage. You know, it's the offensive and the defensive line. And we feel like our defensive line should be a strength for us this year. We return all three kids. They're all very physical kids. They've got great size, great strength, and they're able to move. And so we see them as being the strength of our defense. You know, now we've got some great kids around them, don't get me wrong, but when you return three starters at the same positions as they played a year ago with their athletic ability, you know, my expectation for their performance is extremely high. And so I'm counting on those guys to perform well all year.
You had the 8th ranked scoring defense in the area last year. You were playing the kind of defense that you had been waiting for here at Boyd. How do you maintain that level of play with some new faces beyond the defensive line in your linebacking core and in the secondary?
Well, I think you preach it, you know, which we started. I mean, it goes back to off-season, spring ball, fall camp. I mean, you preach the turnover piece. You know, obviously on offense, taking care of the football, and defense taking it away. You know, we've got to cause fumbles. We've got to intercept the ball. We've got we've got to do those things on the defensive side, and how that happens is through fanatical effort. You know, we expect those kids to be running to the football and get to that ball carrier in a bad mood, and so that's an important piece of that. And I think that we were able to do that last year, and it's contagious. It catches on, you know. And so as you start going in and playing, and the kids that are on that defensive side of the ball see those kids run to the football, make those hits, cause those turnovers, then everybody wants to be a part of that kind of action, you know. So it spreads like fire, hopefully, throughout your defense to where you end up with all 11 of them hungry for that.
What do you like about opening with a crosstown game? As usual, McKinney North is here in week 0.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's good for football in McKinney ISD. I mean, what better way than to open football on a Friday night in August in this town than to put two teams that are in the same district against each other? You know, my hope is that we go out there on Friday and that both sides of that stadium are packed, and one side's wearing orange and the other side's wearing red, and the fans are excited about football, and we get kids in this community out there with their parents excited about high school football, and it'll be a great night, you know. And this game traditionally is pretty competitive. I mean, through the years that we've played, there's not been a whole lot of separation score-wise between us. You know, last year we were able to get the better end of that, but prior to that, every year has been a pretty good football game. And so I would expect it to be a really good football game again this Friday. So, you know, my hope is that everybody's excited. I mean, it's football time. You know, what more could you ask for than to put us two together in a night where, I mean, you got no reason not to get in your car at 7 o'clock and drive to Ron Poe and get ready to see some good ball.
Don, no doubt about it. Best of luck, and we'll see you then.
All right, thank you, man.
Again, it is our McKinney ISD football game of the week on 97.5 KLAK. Don mentions getting your car at 7 o'clock. If you do get in your car at 7, be sure and turn it on 97.5 KLAK. That's when we're on the air, right before the 7:30 kick.